Welcome to MFSN's Waiver Wire Show. We're here to bring you the best picks for your upcoming week in Week 4. I'm here with Fantasy Pros expert Andrew Seifter, and as always, Ross the Boss.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk fantasy sports with you, cowboy. We got some great picks. You got to stay tuned. You got to watch the whole show. We want you to win your league this year.
Yes, we do. And we're going to start with QBs, but I did want to remind everyone, all of these picks are picks that are owned in less than 50% of Yahoo leagues. As such, we can no longer pick Joshua Kelly or Ryan Tannehill. We pushed them over 50% because of our viewership.
Wait, is Russell Wilson still available?
Russell Wilson is available in fantasy Congress leagues, but not in fantasy football.
Okay, I didn't know. Thank God I have you here.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Good,
so you
good,
can
good.
take him as the senator from Zamunda.
Okay.
From Coming to America. All right. We're going to go with the quarterbacks. I want to know who's your number one quarterback pick. For me, it's not even close, actually, but I'll save that for later. Who's got your number one? You guys pounce on it. I don't care who it is.
Interesting. Well, I feel like I always come out and say somebody that's not actually done anything yet, and that's what I'm going to do again. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to say go out there and add Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes. He's been awful, I won't lie. But if you look at the matchups that he's had to play against Pittsburgh, he's had to play against Chicago, he's had to play against San Francisco. Honestly, it probably won't even get much better for him this week against the Rams. But if you want to look at the season as a whole, who's the guy on the waiver wire that's going to be the best quarterback for you the rest of the season? I would say that it's Daniel Jones. He was a top 10 quarterback last year from the moment that he took over that job. And even this year with all his struggles, he's still fourth in the NFL in rushing yards among quarterbacks. So he's still giving you that kind of added bonus there. And, they don't have Saquon now. They, Shepard's out for a little bit, but they've still got plenty of weapons in that passing game with Golden Tate back now, and they've got Darius Slayton. They got Ingram at tight end, plenty of weapons. So I actually think, go against the grain here. You won't have to bid anything to get him. And if you're patient, you could have yourself a good starting quarterback for the second half of the year.
Daniel Jones has no offensive line, first of all. He's getting destroyed back there. Destroyed. And without Barkley doing those like quick screens for 50 yards, he's not getting that anymore. Jones is a huge bust. Get rid of him. Drop him off your team as soon as you
sound like a New York sports radio.
As soon as maybe I'm like Mad Dog now. But I mean, basically, Jones is just get rid of him. Horrible idea. My idea, who's actually starting to put numbers up, he has a good offensive team behind him, is Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is looking a lot better than he did the first two games. He's throwing. He has a new target.
A lot of picks.
Some leagues, picks don't mean nothing. But what I'm saying is, Justin Jefferson, this new kid receiver, is unbelievable. Rookie. I like Kirk Cousins. He's way under 50%. You can get him either as a starter or as a backup. It's not a bad idea. And in the other quarterback, there's a few other quarterbacks I want to bring up. I'll say their names now. I also love Foles for Chicago.
Nick Foles. Yeah, I have him number 2 on my list this week.
Nick Foles is a guy that if he started the year, he would be awful. But because he's coming off the bench, for some reason, he's like magical. Like he had 3 touchdown passes. Chicago looked like an offensive team, like the second half. I was like shocked.
No, I mean, Nick Foles is a relief pitcher. You cannot put him in at the start of the game, but if you bring him in middle of the season, he might win the Super Bowl. He's done it before.
He's had 2 of the most magical stretches.
I mean, I think he's like
anyone has.
I think he's like 8% or 9%, like in Yahoo leagues. So again, these quarterbacks were telling you that they're not really guys that would go say, "Oh my God, I got to start these guys now." I would have him on your bench, good for an off week. And the other guy I love, but I don't know if he'll get his chance, but we'll see, is Hurts from Philadelphia. I think Wentz might lose his job. I've heard rumors that they're not happy with him. He's making stupid mistakes. I know he tied the Bengals over the weekend. Ooh,
Doug Peterson denied that now, but the fact they're even asking the question is pretty incredible.
I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, to take Hurts, you have a big like reserve list, like a big bench league where you can put guys on the bench and you don't really care, Hurts is not a bad idea just because I feel he could see some playing time. And if he does play, I think he could be a weapon. It's just.
But do you take him over Tua?
I probably, because Miami won and Philadelphia has a horrible matchup this week coming up. So I don't know if the Eagles can beat. I think they play San Francisco. They do, right? Yeah.
All this talk about Hurts, I feel like we're talking about a rental car or something. But I just got to say, like, for me, there's 3 different types of quarterback pickups here. I would say that guys like Daniel Jones, Jimmy Garoppolo, whose ownership went down a little bit because he's been hurt. Players like that are going to be solid QB2s, potentially even low-end QB1s if things break the right way. So I feel like those are the type of players that make sense to swoop up if they're available. I
agree.
I think what I was going to say is there's some other kinds of pickups. So like Foles, I think, for example, in a super flex league, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be owned already. Daniel Jones is going to be owned already. Even with the rough start, those guys aren't going to ever get dropped in a super flex league. But Nick Foles was probably on the waiver wire in those leagues. So that's going to be the top pickup by a mile in a super flex league to get Nick Foles, to get a solid quarterback in a decent offense where even Trubisky was putting up some decent numbers in that offense before he got benched, So Foles could certainly be really solid there. And then I think the other type of quarterback is the streamer special, a guy who you're not looking at long term, but you want to play him this week. And for me, that guy this week is Ryan Fitzpatrick with the Dolphins because he played great last week. In a primetime game, built himself a little more job security. I don't think he's getting benched this week. He's going up against Seattle, which, speaking about Russell Wilson there, he's putting up video game numbers. So what that does when Seattle's putting up 30, 40 points, that puts a lot of pressure on the other offense to throw nonstop. And we know Ryan Fitzpatrick can throw nonstop. He hasn't had to do it so much so far this season, but I think he could this week. And that's why the Seattle defense has actually given up the third most fantasy points to quarterbacks. All 3 quarterbacks they've faced this year have thrown for at least 397 yards.
Well, they've been horrible. The Seattle's defense, the worst defense in the league is Dallas. I mean, which is amazing because they actually spend money on their team. And Dallas's defense is just like horrible.
Hold on, guys. I have to change my defensive picks based on what you just told me. No, we'll get to that later.
I know what we're saying when you were picking up these quarterbacks, he's right. If you can get Fitzpatrick this week, it's actually a great idea if you have a quarterback you're not quite sure to start. And another quarterback I brought up last week who I like, he's an average guy, but he'll put up 250 yards and he'll have 2 touchdowns probably every week is Teddy Bridgewater. He's not taken in many leagues and he's decent. Again, he's not going to win you the league, but if you have a bye week or if you have a quarterback who's hurt that's out for a couple weeks, it's not a bad pickup.
I'm realizing
that Dan hasn't even named his top choice yet because I think
I can't wait to hear Dan's top choice.
My picks, you guys have named 1 out of my top 5 so far.
However, I want to hear your top 5.
I mean, during this segment, I proposed a trade for Daniel Jones and then canceled it. I was listening to Andrew and then I listened to Ross, and so I'm a little all over the place with that. But Justin Herbert is still not owned in over 50% of Yahoo leagues. To me, he's the one guy on this list or that's out there that can make a really big difference. He's on a good team. Nick Foles, I think, is just below him, but he's close in value. I expect him to do similar things. After that, you get into what I think is a total crapshoot, and then you've got. I like Andrew's point about how there's guys on the wire that are low value right now, and you can pounce on them. I didn't think about all those matchup things, so I think I'm inclined to agree with you on Daniel Jones. But after that, I'm often looking for upside. So Tua, I gotta have stashed because that guy could win you a league. I don't know what he'll do. He could do nothing. He could not do well. But if he's one of those guys that can actually win you a league, so I actually have him 3rd still.
And
I'm
I think
pushing
this is a
Tua
good point.
all the way.
I mean, I think it's really again, like we've talked about it before on the show. Deciding how you're going to use your bench spots is really important, and you have to think. Proactively about what is the goal with each of those spots, right? So, if you're picking up a quarterback that's just going to, if you have Russell Wilson or Dak Prescott or somebody like that, you're really just thinking about a bye week fill-in, and you don't need to roster 2 quarterbacks at all unless you're in a super flex league, right? So you shouldn't even waste a second bench spot on a quarterback in that scenario. If your quarterback's kind of mediocre, though, I understand wanting to stash somebody with some upside that could maybe be an upgrade for you there. I actually did have Justin Herbert as my second quarterback, just behind Daniel Jones in my initial rankings. I'm wondering if I need to move him down just a little bit, though, behind maybe a Jimmy Garoppolo or a Nick Foles, just because I still worry about Anthony Lynn pulling the plug on Herbert. I know it makes no sense to us, but it doesn't matter what we think. It matters what he thinks. It's a one man.
He is going to pull the plug. He's an old school. He's an old running back. He's a team guy.
And he's not going to bench Tyrod Taylor because their doctors punctured his lung. He's not going to let him go down like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I think he'll get his day in the sun. I see him coming back.
Even so, I don't think Tyrod lasts even if he comes back.
I mean, I like Herbert. I just feel I don't know how long he'll be starting for, but we'll see.
Yep. But I still think even if he ends up on the bench at some point, he's coming back. Tyrod Taylor.
Oh, he's great. He's a Pac-12 quarterback. He's a winner. I like him.
I love having him in Dynasty. I'd be excited. I mean, he's thrown for over 300 yards
the real
in both
deal.
of his games so far.
Yeah, I mean, he really is. And Daniel Jones went to Duke. I mean, how good can he be? Seriously. I mean, if it was basketball, great. But
I'm still scarred from Tim Couch from Kentucky.
I had Daniel Jones last year.
You don't draft a quarterback from Kentucky.
I picked Daniel Jones. I traded for Daniel Jones last year in the Superflex, and he went.
Well, he
win the league.
like you said, the last 8 games of the year, he was like a top 4 quarterback. He was unbelievable.
The two quarterbacks I had.
I'm trading for
last year were Josh Allen and Daniel Jones. Beginning of the year, everyone thought both of them were terrible. And then by the end of the year, they were winning me a championship,
Yeah, I mean, again.
Wait. Was this the league where I dealt you Daniel Jones?
Yeah. Yeah, you did it to me. That's right.
Jesus Christ. Why you got to do this to me?
No, Daniel Jones had a great
I was trying not to mention it, Dan, so I didn't twist the knife too much.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
all right.
let's hear Dan's top 5. Go.
Okay, well, Justin Herbert first, Nick Foles second, Tua third. Now, I think Baker Mayfield has turned it around to be a solid quarterback, and he's on a team that is going to put up a lot of points. Now, I know they're a running first team, but he's gonna be a decent value. He's a back end guy. I'm not saying he's great, but I looked at the list and I was like, I'm not loving these guys. You guys have brought up some good quarterbacks for me to think about that I wasn't thinking about. I had Baker fourth, and I had this one people hold their nose for, but Derek Carr is actually putting up some decent numbers on a good team. If you need a solid guy, a bye week fill-in, especially if he's got a good matchup, I'd go for him. I'm not saying those are I wasn't happy with those picks. When I looked at the list, and this is what happens as the season goes on, things are just picked bone dry. So you want to pounce on it these weeks. But
I think some of these guys, my concern is that their offenses are just conservative in nature. The Bridgewater situation, the Kirk Cousins, the Baker Mayfield. I would say Jimmy Garoppolo too, who I brought up. These are all situations where the team philosophically does not want to get into these wild shootouts. So they're kind of just old school kind of approaches where they're not going to have their quarterback throw a million times. But anyway, I think we've spent long enough on quarterbacks.
I think in your league, if you don't have a good quarterback right now that you're happy with, I think you lost the season anyways. Listen.
Yeah, let's move on to running backs. To me, there's like one guy that stands far and above everyone else, in my opinion, and he's a guy that we talked about last week, but he's still under 50% owned. That's Myles Gaskin with the Dolphins.
Same one.
I think it's even more clear now that he's the one and only back in that backfield that matters in fantasy. And he had 27 touches this last week. Unbelievable. Clearly, you just don't find bell cows like that on the waiver wire very often. So he's clearly my number one pickup, but I'll be interested to hear who else you guys are looking at.
Okay, well, I have him number one also. And when this week was totally different. There were a lot less injuries, a lot less guys you have to pounce on. And I agree. Myles Gaskin was the one who was just sitting out. I think Myles Gaskin is, I'm not going to say he's Kurt Warner, but he's that kind of player where everybody's like, oh, I don't want him. And then he's performing and his role is good. Ross, you seem to disagree.
No, he's a decent guy. He's not going to win you any leagues. He gets a lot of touches, which is so important as a running back. I mean, he had a great game on national television on Thursday last week. And, he'll put up decent numbers. I think there's better people out there that I rather have on my team right now that I could probably stash. I feel I picked him up just because I feel this player gets hurt every year, and I feel it coming on this year I feel the Minnesota Vikings running back Cook will probably be hurt sometime.
That usually happens at some point.
I like Alexander Madison a lot. I feel that you've got to get him and stash him away somewhere. Rex Burkhead had an unbelievable game against the Raiders. I think that's very important also. I think Rex is somebody, I love his name.
Is it just me though? I mean, do you guys hate the New England backfield?
I hate it.
Well, so actually, no. I'm a big James White proponent, and first of all, thoughts, to James White and for that horrible situation that he's gone through. But just from a fantasy perspective, I think he's incredibly underrated because he's the one guy in that backfield who's had like a very consistent role year in and year out. And it delivers not just in PPR leagues, but he actually is been capable of putting up RB2 numbers even in standard formats. So with him out, I think Burkhead was a major beneficiary, and I think that when White comes back, he's going to get that job back because he's done it so well for so long. I think the early down work, the between the tackle stuff, is Sony Michel is kind of always teasing. And, some people are going to chase his numbers from last week because he went over 100 yards, but he only had 9 carries. And that we know that Sony Michel, when he gets 9 carries, he's usually going to get like 27 yards, not 100 yards, So I don't generally want to chase the flavor of the month. Or the flavor of the week, I guess, with the Patriots. But I do like James White. I still have him stashed in one league, and you can put him in IR while he's dealing with his personal situation, and then use that roster space somewhere else for a little while.
And then if you're really desperate, I mean, these are desperate times with these running backs. Just so you know, I mean, this isn't people I'm like, I have to get. I mean, so the other one, the other running back I like for waiver wire purposes this week is Frank Gore. Frank had a bunch of touches he plays for the Jets. I know, don't lecture me on the Jets. I know they're not a good team. I know Donald, somebody's probably gonna lose his job. He should be benched too. It's another one. I've like 4 guys that should be benched. Oh yeah. Again. I mean, Donald is just awful. But I feel Frank Gore, I don't know how old he is, but he just keeps going and going.
He's 75 years old.
He's older than,
it's amazing.
He's older than George Blanda.
No, I was wrong. He just turned 76 during this show.
But Gore is Gore and Adrian Peterson, I feel like they're the same person practically. They just keep playing. They're guys that
except Peterson is better though. That's
I know. But Peterson
he's always been better, and he's still better.
That's the amazing thing about Gore. He's not ever been Adrian Peterson, but he's always been a really good running back, and he continues to have value.
Yeah,
he's a Hall of Famer and went to the University of Miami, the U. The same school that our guest later in the week is from, and so I'm teasing.
I love how you always know the colleges.
I'm teasing a little bit, but I really love Frank Gore. I feel that he is somebody that if you need a running back to start on a bye week, it's not a crazy bad start. He could have a touchdown. He could have 60, 70 yards. Pick him up if you need an RB.
I don't disagree. He's averaged 18 rushes the last 2 weeks. I mean, that's just a lot of volume. I think it's interesting though, because you mentioned Alexander Madison and Frank Gore, and to me that brings up an interesting question. I think how you devote your bench spots really depends on your league format and your situation. I'm in one league where we have 2 flex spots, a super flex. There's just a lot of players in your starting lineup, and in that kind of a league, I feel like Frank Gore is useful because you might not have a great option for that additional flex, and he's someone that isn't going to have a huge game, but he'll get you some points. And if you have a bunch of other really good players in your lineup, that extra, 6-8 points might be all that you need. Whereas like in some leagues, I feel like your whole bench just needs to be stashed with lottery tickets. And Alexander Madison's a great example, but there's a lot of other ones. You got the Tony Pollards of the world. You got the Darrell Williamses of the world.
I actually was going to say Darrell Williams as my last pick.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I mean,
the only reason why is because the rookie running back, he's great for Kansas City, but
yeah, Chase Edmonds is another one.
I mean, Chase Edmonds, Gus Edwards, I like,
but injury away from being a top 5 running back. So those, I think it's I think it's really good to stash those players when you have the room. I think a lot of people draft an Alexander Mattison and then like he does nothing the first 3 weeks and they get bored and they cut him and then Dalvin Cook gets hurt and there's this mad dash to the waiver wire to get him.
Yeah.
So it's good to be ahead of the game on those things.
This is another reason why I've come around very quickly to Andrew's idea of you cut the kicker. And then you keep some backup running back, and you keep one for the 1 o'clock games. And if it doesn't work out, you cut him and pick somebody up for the 4 o'clock games.
I'm not a fan of that. I think there's certain kickers.
I know you're not, but
there's certain kickers that if your league is a league where you get extra points for like yards,
we'll
like
get
over
to kickers,
50,
folks.
I mean,
we're going to devote the last 35 minutes of the show to kickers.
I know, but kickers can win the league. I've been in leagues where the kickers decided if you win or lose. It's a weird situation. We'll talk about that later.
That's definitely true.
Kickers decide if real life NFL teams.
Okay, so I gave you guys all my running. I gave you guys all my running backs.
So my number 2 behind Myles Gaskin is actually Carlos Hyde with the Seahawks, just because Chris Carson got banged up. It doesn't look like a serious injury, thankfully, because I have got Chris Carson in one of my leagues, in my Dynasty League.
I have him in both of my leagues.
Well, there you go. I think he's at most going to miss 1 or 2 weeks. It's a grade 1 knee sprain, they said. So
that was
that's
a cheap hit,
severe.
too.
Oh, it was. The twisting of the leg, that was ugly.
And Pete Carroll went crazy about it after the game.
Rightfully so, too, yeah. But, I think that Carson, my guess is he does end up missing 1 week. So that makes Carlos Hyde a very interesting play. I mean, the Seahawks are just as good an offense as it gets. And I do worry a little about his inability to catch passes. I think Travis Homer might get involved a little bit there too. But either way, I mean, they're going to be inside the red zone constantly.
Where's that guy Penny? They drafted Penny out of San Diego State.
He's on the PUP list, yeah.
Oh, is he? I mean, I thought he was going to be a great running back when he was in college. I saw him play a number of times.
Well, and he performed pretty well for a stretch there.
He had a good stretch, but
always been better.
I haven't seen him play this year. I was going to ask Andrew or Dan, like, what's going on with this guy?
I think a lot of people in the fantasy community get tunnel vision, and they really, draft capital is very important. Because it shows you what the teams think of the players. So I'm not saying you should ignore it, but I think that you get to a certain point where the guy that's actually playing, even if he's an undrafted free agent, like a Chris Carson or a Phillip Lindsay or this year James Robinson, so at a certain point you have to use your eyes and see what's actually happening on the field. And I feel like a lot of people are late to the game with those kind of players because they're so trained to think, oh, the team didn't invest a first-round pick on this guy, so he can't be good, right? But sometimes they are good, and especially at the running back position.
I was going to say, but there's also when we get to wide receivers, we're going to talk about Allen Lazard, who I was higher on than it sounded like than you guys, and obviously this week.
But you got lucky. Their number 1 receiver didn't play this week. Devontae didn't play. You got lucky.
No, that's true. That's true, but you haven't even heard what I'm saying about that. I'm talking about him versus MVS. I always thought Lazard was better than
We talked
MVS.
About that.
We'll get to that.
100%.
We'll get to that. But this is one of those weeks, I think, where you might take a pass unless you're going for one person, which I'll talk about later. I'm not going to talk about it now. You got to keep watching if you want to find out. But this is the kind of running back situation that you usually I'd wait on. As good as Myles Gaskin is, I don't think he's the home run guy. He's not the Alexander Mattison if Dalvin Cook goes down that could change your whole season. So I don't think you use your top pick on him. He's a very good player. But then there's guys like Brian Hill or Anthony McFarland, I think, is starting to come on the radar. This could be a guy to get ahead of. I'm not saying I love these guys, but this is one of those times where you're deciding how to use your bench spots, like Andrew has talked about all the time. He pushes that, and it's a very valuable part of the game. I could be wrong about it, but Anthony McFarland, his carries and his yards sure did look good to me. And Benny Snell has really flopped, and I think he could easily leap over him. So he's not. I have Madison ahead of him. But I have him at the back end.
My problem with McFarland is if I'm going to stash somebody that's a backup, I want it to be the clear backup, and I think Snell had a great week 1. And you say he flopped. He hasn't really had that many touches since then. So it's, James Conner, Mike Tomlin has made it clear over and over again he believes in going with a bell cow.
That's true.
Back. So
That's
James
true.
Conner's getting all the work until he gets hurt. And then, he does tend to get hurt. But the question is is it going to be Snell? Is it going to be McFarland? We don't know. Whereas some of these other
I
situations,
agree with you.
the guy got hurt and you know who it is,
Well, this is why Alexander Mattison is much higher on my list. I'm just mentioning him as somebody to start looking out for.
I agree.
Guys, let's talk about wide receivers. We're all done with running backs, right? I think we went through the whole list. I do like Brian Hill for Atlanta. I think he showed a lot over the weekend. He had some good runs. It's not a bad pickup. I was thinking about him putting on my list. He was like my number 6 guy.
He's like a handcuff that could also maybe have a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not.
10 touches a game.
I don't think he'll win the league, but if God forbid if Todd Gurley gets hurt, he's a good fill-in, obviously. Let's talk about wide receivers. I mentioned before. I think this guy's a for sure number 1. This is mine. Is Justin moving on up to the big time? Gonna get a piece of the pie. Okay, so. Justin Jefferson, he's a rookie. He looked unbelievable on Sunday for the Minnesota Vikings. He was clearly burning his quarterback every play. I truly believe in this guy. I feel that he's a great 1-2 punch from Minnesota right now.
All right, now I teased somebody,
my number 1.
And he was my guy. He was my guy. He
was my number 1, but my close number 2, who actually went to an unbelievable university in Arizona State, is Brandon Aiyuk. And Brandon had like a great game, and he is getting comfortable out there. And I saw him play in college, and he's an offensive weapon. And if he's used right, he's good for like 100 yards and a touchdown, probably 5 out of 6 games. I mean,
I totally agree, but let me make this point. This is the time of year where you start to see those rookie wide receivers start to emerge, and it's going to be uneven. You're going to have weeks where it's not so good, but when you get into the second half of the season, you're not going to be able to get these guys. And Justin Jefferson, with the performance he put up, you're not going to be able to get him. I mean, you're going to have to pay a significant piece of the pie.
Well, I say, let me tell you something. I say this week.
You already have to pay.
Andrew and Dan, I think this week you'll see Justin Jefferson. He'll be the highest percentage rated guy from the Yahoo Sports for this week. I think he'll go up the most.
Go up the most? I totally
definitely.
See that. I mean, he had 175 yards and a touchdown, right?
That's what I'm saying.
There's not a chance we'll be talking about him next week on the waiver wire.
Because he's going to be 60. Let me predict 64%, I say, has him.
Yeah, no, and I have him as my number 1 choice as well. Although, and I think it's interesting. It goes with your Kirk Cousins pick too. So that's the interesting thing to me. The reason I believe in Justin Jefferson is because I believe in the talent, and I also sort of believe in the role. There's a lot of receivers out there at any given time, and this week for me it was hard to get a list down to 5 because there's so many, and that's where I kind of feel like a running back like Gaskin, just to go back to what Dan was talking about, I feel like that's much rarer to find that than to find an interesting receiver. I can always find interesting receivers who could break out if things go the right way.
Okay, Andrew, my number 2 is Brandon Aiyuk of the 49ers. Tell me your list. Go.
Okay, well, so I have Justin Jefferson 1, but the reason I believe, I do think they run a conservative offense, so that I don't know how many targets he's going to get every week, but I do think that their defense is so bad this year that they're going to have to, as much as Mike Zimmer wants to run the ball and play conservatively, they're going to have to pass more. And we've seen in the past that offense has supported 2 really high-end wide receivers. So it's Thielen. It used to be Diggs. Now it could be Thielen, Justin Jefferson. So I'm totally on board.
We all agree that Justin Jefferson isn't just the number 1 receiver, but your number 1 waiver wire pick.
I would take Myles Gaskin ahead of him, to be honest.
So Myles Gaskin, just so you know, he was like 47%.
Right.
So he could be gone in a lot of your leagues.
If he wasn't on the Dolphins, he would be way more than that.
I agree with you. I agree, but I'm worried that
people said the same thing about James Robinson with the Jaguars, and that's why it took a while for his ownership numbers to go up too. Yeah. So I'll take the running back that's catching passes and running. But anyway, Jefferson could be a huge breakout.
So who's 2?
I have Allen Lazard too. I'll admit I was wrong on that one, Dan. I didn't think the main thing I think I underestimated was his ability to make big plays. I mean, I think anyone that's playing with Aaron Rodgers, if they let him go down the field, they can make big plays. And Lazard made a couple big plays in that game. So as much as I think MVS has more big play potential, I think Lazard has the trust of Rodgers, and that's more important. So he's my number 2. Ayuk, I have number 3. My question there again is a conservative offense Kittle was out. Deebo Samuel was out. Once those guys come back, I wonder how much of a role Ayuk will play. He might just be used as more of like a gadget player. But at the same time, Deebo Samuel isn't super established in the league either, and he's coming off a Jones fracture, which is a pretty significant injury. So they might be overly optimistic to say they're going to get him back in a week or two. It might be longer, or he might not be effective. And in that case, we might see Ayuk really become the number one wide receiver. I mean, Kittle's always going to be the top target, but the number one wide receiver in that offense, which would be pretty valuable.
4 and 5?
4 or 5. These guys are, I beat the horn on Golden Tate. He's my 5. I won't repeat that. But my 4, this guy's also super underrated. Cole Beasley.
I have Cole.
People look at him. He's been a PPR darling for a long time because he catches a lot of passes. But the thing is, that Bills offense is so great this year that he's really, taken a step forward. And he scored 6 TDs last year, so it's not like he can't find the end zone. And also, John Brown got banged up last week, so they might have even more targets heading Cole Beasley's way next week.
Okay, Dan. Dan, the pressure's on you. I want to hear your genius list.
And if I blow this, it won't be that big of a deal. Okay, here we go. Justin Jefferson, clearly number 1. Alan Lazard, number 2. And
Good.
by the way, I did actually, I cut him in that, cycling through backup running backs, and then I picked him right back up. So I actually still have him. And now, obviously, I won't be able to let him go for a while. But the reason I like Lazard over MVS is that big play Mecole Hardman kind of guy. I think that's too boom or bust. Lazard could be a kind of Julian Edelman type. That's what I like.
But can he really when Devontae Adams is back, though? I don't think so.
Well, I think Rodgers is in such a tear right now. I mean, they're averaging like 38, 39 points a game. He's on fire.
I just think
he's mad. I think he's mad. I'm pretty sure he's mad he broke up with Danica Patrick. So I think he's just a revenge season for him. And I know. Listen, go ahead.
Well, when I broke up with Danica Patrick, I went on a tear. I mean, Danica, I want you back. Okay.
But so I think Rodgers does need a number 2 receiver. I think Lazard is the answer. I really do. And I don't think it's a bad pickup to store on a guy that you can start once in a while.
I'm with you guys. I have him as my number 2 pickup. I'm just saying, like, 4. Nothing is ever as great as it seems with these wide receiver breakouts. It's like, this is probably their best game of the season,
Well, that may be, but Lazard already had a good game. 2 out of 3 games he's had.
And you know what? I studied like him and Rodgers in the huddle, and Rodgers really likes the guy. You can tell that Rodgers really likes throwing to him. He gets happy when he caught the touchdown. I mean, I can just tell there's some synergy there between the two. I know. It's just me, but I can see it.
No, this week I was in the huddle, and Aaron Rodgers. He really, it was like he could only talk to Lazard. It was actually a little weird. So I just, but anyways, I've had Lazard number 3 on my list the last 2 weeks. And this time he moves up to number 2.
Progress.
But I'm just saying, I really haven't beaten the drum on him.
But I think this will be the last. I think this will be the last week of Lazard. I think.
This is last call on him. This is last call on him.
This is it. So no more Lazard talk after this.
All right, Dan, who else you got?
Okay, number 3, I've got Scottie Miller. I think that this guy, speaking of Julian Edelman role, he's there. He had a bad week too, but he rebounded nicely this week. And I think he's going to always have consistent value. So I have him 3. I have Nikhil Harry is my number 4. He had a very bad week this week, but that actually is an opportunity. The guy's getting a lot of targets, and I think that was game flow.
Well, I love him. He went to a great school, the same school as Brandon Aiyuk. I mean, can you imagine those two on the same team together? Oh my God. But I mean, basically Harry is a great receiver when he's healthy. He does get dinged up all the time. He gets beaten up back there, so he will not play every game this year. I guarantee.
The real question is how Cam throws too, because I'm on record loving Cam as a QB1 this year in fantasy, but a lot of that's just because of his rushing ability, especially near the goal line. Passed incredibly
Doesn't he have one touchdown pass?
He passed incredibly well.
He has one touchdown pass. You're 100%
against
right.
The
one touchdown pass.
Well, so he threw great against the Patriots. He looked like vintage Cam. But this last week he didn't.
Wait, he's on the Patriots.
I'm sorry, against the Seahawks. They were playing.
All right,
playing the Seahawks.
I'm just making sure.
They almost won that game, just so you know. It came very close. So let's not pretend.
Okay, wait.
So this last week he looked more like the Cam that kind of struggled towards the end there in Carolina. So we'll have to see how he is throwing the ball. I mean, I know Edelman is kind of going to hog a lot of those targets. So we'll have to see how much there is.
We'll see what happens. Now, the only person you guys missed that I like that was on my list. I
haven't even finished.
Oh, you're not finished. Oh, I thought you were finished. Okay, who's your last?
No, I got one more. I got one more. And
who is it?
Can I finish? Oh, that's a nice Ross Perot reference.
Yes.
All right. So, see, this is making me think I should put Scottie Miller 6th. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring in Keelan Cole, is still not owned in enough leagues. The guy is going to be catching a lot of passes. And I need to have him on there so that I can call Keelan Cole Beasley one person and have them both on the list. Because Cole Beasley, it's like you said, you realize that the Bills are not the Bills of the past. I mean, they're a high-octane offense at this point. And you want every piece you can get of that. So
and
those are my lists.
And actually, I love Scottie Miller. I mentioned that I've had him stashed in my dynasty league for a while now, and I actually think he is kind of like a young version of Cole Beasley. And it's a similar situation where they both were, the third receiver on their team, more of a possession guy, but then the second receiver or first receiver in the case of Tampa, because Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are kind of 1A, 1B, but Godwin's having an MRI. He could be out for a while, and that's going to create even more opportunity for Miller.
Yeah, and if that happens, then Scottie Miller should be third, and I change my vote. And
no, you can't. No changes. You just voted. You can't change it. Sorry, we tried.
All right, sounds good. So we're moving on to tight ends.
No. There's one receiver I want to mention that I love, and he's actually my fifth pick is Hunter Renfrow of the Raiders. I feel that Carr tries to throw to him a lot, and I feel I can see him remember Tasker for the Bills? He's like that type of receiver. He's a guy that's going to catch the ball when you throw it to him.
He's hero of the national championship game, right? I mean, the guy is clutch.
He played for the small school called Clemson.
Yeah.
And he's somebody that if you need a receiver to be on your bench, he's not a bad pick. So Hunter Renfrow, national champion, LA Raider, Las Vegas Raiders, go for it.
I mean, who can keep track of where these teams play anymore?
I always mix up Raiders.
The Wichita Raiders. Chargers. Okay, guys, we're moving on to tight end.
Okay, let's talk about tight ends. Go.
Yeah, I mean, they've been kind of promiscuous with cities. Okay, we're going with tight ends. For me, my number one guy, I believe, is the same number one I had before. It's Eric Ebron. The guy is just, he's a red zone threat every time. He's on a great team. He's got Ben Roethlisberger's throwing to him. I see him as head and shoulders above the others, but I will say Dalton Schultz is next on my list. I'd say he's half as exciting as Eric Ebron is. Not that I'm super excited. I mean, when we're talking about, going into week 4 or 5 with tight ends, you're not going to be super excited about the options, but Dalton Schultz is playing in a great offense. He's got a great opportunity. And number 3, I have an oldie but a goodie, Jimmy Graham.
Golden Graham, we call him. He's actually my number 2.
Nick Foles. Yeah, Nick Foles, and the guy he's just always a red zone threat. He hasn't. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but huge people don't suddenly get not huge. So that's I'm gonna,
And Nick Foles in the past has loved throwing to the tight end. When he was with the Eagles, he threw to Ertz had an unbelievable season when he was when he was there with Foles as his quarterback. So the Jimmy Graham's a great pickup. I would probably even consider starting him in a couple of matchups, but that's a great one.
Well, so the funny thing is Dan's list there that he just gave, I don't think he got to his number 5, but the 1 through 4, I guess it was.
Yeah.
Or 1
no, I didn't even get to 4, but I
want to hear 4.
Your 1 through 3 was my 2 through 4.
Yeah, I mean, we all kind of have the same there. There's not. There's a couple guys. There's a couple things I want to talk to you about tight end, but keep going.
Okay. Well, so my number 1 above those guys is Alley Cox. And I understand that Jack Doyle's back and we're going to have to see how that plays out. But I think the upside there for Alley Cox is huge because he brings an athletic dimension to that position for the Colts that Jack Doyle does not have. And the thing is that the Colts philosophically love to throw to the tight end. That's the team that, Eric Ebron made his name for, right? And Phillip Rivers also, as his quarterback history is just littered with throwing to the tight end. He loves throwing to the tight end. So you got
he still throws to Antonio Gates even now.
Yeah, he had some no-name tight end named Antonio Gates.
Yeah, right. He's a pretty good guy. So you got an offensive philosophy that features the
and
tight
Doyle
end.
had 0 yards with 0 catches and 0 targets last week.
Right. You got an offensive philosophy that focuses on the tight end. You've got a quarterback that focuses on the tight end. You've got a tight end who has surpassed the other guy in the depth chart and is making big plays. And I just feel like the potential there is so high. It's sort of like what we want Eric Ebron to do. Alley Cox is already doing, So I do have Ebron second because I love the situation. I love his upside. And I will say his yardage has gone up. His catches have gone up each week successively. So the breakout is coming with Ebron. So I think both of those guys are great pickups. After that, Dalton Schultz is my third. Just because his floor is so high in that offense. It's not anything really about him. It's about people were expecting Blake Jarwin to break out. Now it's Dalton Schultz. He's going to get that 50 yards just because of the kind of offense that the Cowboys have, and Dak is playing out of his mind right now.
He had 470 yards last week?
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. Wow. So I've wanted every piece of that offense from day one that I could get, and that includes the tight end. So Schultz is a good pickup as well. And then I have Graham as 4. But, for me, Graham is really a step below these other guys because I think it's, he's a red zone guy. He's never going to have a big yardage.
No, we're talking about Graham with Foles. Foles and Graham are the new combination. They're like the new tag team.
But Jimmy Graham's got his feet in concrete. The guy is not what he used to be athletically. He can still make those jump ball plays in the end zone, but he's not going down the field for like 30-yard passes anymore like he did in his Saints days,
Did you guys see the catch that Kyle Rudolph made for Minnesota over the weekend? Oh my, that was unbelievable.
As an Irv Smith dynasty owner, I'm very very disappointed.
What did he do?
So Kyle Rudolph, the tight end from Minnesota, caught a football and used his feet and stayed in bounds. You got to watch it. It was unbelievable. It was one of the best catches I've seen.
He caught the ball with his feet?
All right. No, but it was a great catch, Andrew. I don't know if you saw it.
I'm going to take a look at it. So I have Alley Cox 5th. It was funny. As you were talking about
all these guys, the only thing I have is this with tight ends. Listen, I have all the same names you guys have, so I'm not going to go through my list because it's boring. The one thing that people are dropping, I see it. It's been going on every week. He's been getting lower and lower. He's not at 50% yet, but he will be, I predict, by Wednesday, is Gronk. And I feel Gronk is going to start catching the ball again. He showed a little life in his last game, and I feel people are dropping him. People are tending to, you know what? I'm going to pick up Jimmy Graham. I'm dropping Gronk. Yeah. So I feel this is the time you go in and grab Gronk.
Well, and
why not?
Bruce Arians and Gronk himself have both been kind of feeding that narrative. Like they've been setting the expectations really low.
No, he said, what he said recently? He said, I guess they signed me in the block.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
yeah.
It's funny. Bruce Arians said like he can't do what he used to do anymore. He was very blunt about it, But I think he likes to get his players fired up. Yeah,
no, that's a ploy. It's an old Dan ploy. Dan did the same thing. He would tell me, I have no game anymore. I can't play. And then all of a sudden, he's unbelievable.
I make a lot of jokes, but I actually did once interview Rob Gronkowski. I don't know if I ever told you that story. Yeah, I have pictures of it.
We'll show
it. We'll hear that later. But I also wanted to say Alley Cox. I kept hearing that name, and it sounded like it should be a Spike Lee film.
Yeah.
And actually, if you really pay attention to it, it's not suitable for child audiences. Say the name over again and you'll hear it.
No, I'm not falling into your psychology trap.
Can I mention one more tight end real quick?
Who? I want to hear this genius.
This is just for super deep leagues. Deep leagues. This guy is actually, this is just the first time this happened in the waiver show that I know of. This guy is 0% owned in Yahoo leagues.
Wow. Awesome.
So his name is Adam Troutman. He's a backup tight end for the New Orleans Saints. He's a rookie. And 5th round pick out of Dayton. And Jared Cook got injured. Jared Cook got injured this last week. We'll see how serious it is. We're still early in the week. So
the last name of Troutman, he has no chance at all of having any effect in any football games in the
maybe
NFL.
Fishing, but
Troutman. But you know what? Dan and I will put Troutman on our list. And for every touchdown he scores,
crossing off Logan Thomas is off. Adam Troutman in.
They're desperate. They're desperate for pass catchers in New Orleans. He's a rookie. He's got some untapped potential. If he's starting at tight end, for that team, for the Saints. And, say what you want about Breeze, but maybe he's not throwing the deep ball, but he can still connect on those short and intermediate routes.
Okay, guys, let's talk the subject I love to talk about, because I really think this is an underrated position in fantasy football, especially in the leagues where if you kick over 50 yards, it's like double points, is kicker. And there was a kicker that the first game of the year, he was awful. The second game was better. Third game, he was like unbelievable. He plays in Tennessee. His name is Stephen Gronikowski. Thank you.
No, he's become Gronk. Yeah.
So I feel he's not in many. He's like 18%. He's very low in the Yahoo leagues, and he's somebody you can pick up. In Tennessee, Henry had his first 2 touchdowns on Sunday. He hasn't scored since then, which means they're kicking a lot of field goals. It's in New England, he was lights out. I mean, he was like a 1 or 2 kicker
scored
for
since
many
Sunday. When would he have had a chance?
Yeah, I mean,
he had like 5. I mean,
Baltimore and Kansas City scored.
He had 5. He had 5 field goals, I believe, on Sunday.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are traumatized from his Week 1 performance. I don't know if you
that's
caught that,
the thing. That's why he's not in many
leagues. He missed a lot of kicks in that game. Yeah.
This is just making me realize this is the point in the show where we need to say that everybody needs to subscribe, click the bell. We were forgetting to say it, and then when you start talking about kickers, then that makes me start to think, there's something else I needed to do. Kick the bell through the upright.
Yes.
Okay. Mine now. Andrew and I clearly play with a different game than Ross does with kickers. But I would say I took your rules to heart. I'm looking at kickers who are favored in the game and kicking it home. So I've got Fairbairn as my top pick. And I didn't like the picks this week that much. So we're not great ones. I've got Sly third against Arizona. And I've got the Bengals kicker. This is for Ross the Boss.
Reggie Bullock
against Jacksonville.
Yeah.
All right. You guys have not named any of my top 4 kickers.
And then the
weird.
I do like Chris Boswell for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, it's a good option. Yeah.
I think Pittsburgh is really playing great football. Actually, Ben Rothensberger. I mean, I have him as a backup in one of my leagues. I'll probably start him next week over Breeze, but I mean, he's on their offense is moving. I like Boswell a lot. I feel that he's going to have a good season this year, and okay. I want to hear what Andrew has to say.
I'm going to go through my kickers real quick, and then we're going to move to defenses because I think that's more important than kickers generally.
Oh, you guys have no clue.
Here's my 4 kickers for you, and I did have Fairbairn 5th. Ryan Suckup from the Bucs. They're big favorites over the Chargers. Good offense, good kicking conditions.
I like him.
Good history of kicking. Sam Sloman with the Rams, huge favorites over the Giants. So he should be getting a lot of field goals late in the second half with them up big. Jason Myers with the Seahawks. You just want any part of that offense you can get.
He's under 50% owned?
Yeah, he's right at 50%.
He's like 48.
Oh, yeah. I didn't count him because he was at 50.
Oh, I'm sorry. 50 or under as I thought we were doing. We'll have to clarify.
Well, I would have Myers number 1. I would like
to. Okay, well, I actually picked him up this last week, and he only kicked 4 extra points, so it doesn't always work out the way you want. But and then Rodrigo Blankenship with the Colts. Has just been great.
You love saying his name, Andrew. You love saying Rodrigo Blankenship.
He was great in college. He's been great for the Colts so far. And that team, their defense has been phenomenal. They're just in a lot of favorable game scripts for kickers. So anyway, let's move to defenses.
All right.
Who do you guys have as your top defense? Number 1.
I bet you can guess who I have as my top defense. Remember last week I called Indianapolis and they went completely bananas. So I hope that you listened to me on that. Guess who my number 1 pick is? Based on that information.
Oh.
It is Denver.
Yeah.
Denver plays, guess who?
The Jets.
The Jets. Yes. Now, it is a Thursday game, which could make it even sloppier and more in their favor. Yeah. I didn't love the defensive picks this week, I have to say. I think people are doing a good job picking up the right teams. But Denver's my number 1 pick. Who you got, Ross?
It was tough this week because I don't like Denver's defense. They're out. Their best defense player is out for the year. I feel... I mean, I like what I saw. I know they gave up a lot of points, but I do like the Rams this week. I feel the Rams will score a lot of points, and I feel that the team they're playing. What team are they playing?
I think their defense is too owned though. The Rams.
Oh, they're over.
Who
50?
Are they playing?
Yeah, They're playing the Giants.
They're playing the Giants.
Oh,
Also,
right.
the Rams are over 50.
Yeah, no.
Well,
they're over 50, probably because of that.
Well, no, because they have Aaron Donald and they have Jalen Ramsey, and they're just a really.
Oh well, that too. Fine, they have good players. Okay.
No, they have good players. I mean, I was on the same thing as everybody else. I mean, I just felt this week, looking at the teams that were under 50%, they just didn't have great matchups. So I'm just hoping that you have somebody that's over 50%, and I'm hoping that you have your a defensive team that you can start.
There'll be weeks like that, I mean,
I didn't really find anybody under 50% that I loved.
So last week I felt like there were a ton of streaming defenses, just because some of the lesser regarded defenses had phenomenal matchups. This week, you're right. I think most of the great matchups are on already highly owned defenses. But I will say, Denver's my number one as well. But this may sound crazy, but I wouldn't mind taking the other side of that game either and roll with the New York Jets defense. Not a great defense by any stretch of the imagination, but they're actually really good up front. And they're going to be playing against a Denver team that does not know who they're starting at quarterback.
Is it Driscoll?
Well, Driscoll got benched for Brett Ripien.
It's Ripken.
No, Ripien. It's
Ripien.
Like,
wait, is that Mark Rippen's son?
I don't know, actually. If it is, I mispronounced it.
Or is it his grandson?
I think
maybe it's his grandson.
But the third,
I think you're right.
not Ripien the third.
I gotta look that one up.
But regardless, you're in a bad situation when you sign Blake Bortles off the street, and then you're disappointed he's not going to be ready and know the playbook in time for the game, so that's their situation. The only thing Denver is going to be able to do, they already are missing, their number one receiver out for the season, Cortland Sutton. Their number two guy, Jerry Jeudy, is beat up and might not play. I mean, that's a train wreck of a passing game. So the only thing they can do is run the ball, and the Jets are good at stopping the run. And it's a Thursday night game. There's going to be like 10 points scored total.
I
agree with you. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, and I think both teams will have problems scoring.
I actually had the Jets as my number two, believe it or not.
Okay, there you go. And then I'll give you one other defense I like a lot this week. The Cardinals, Arizona Cardinals.
They were so bad on defense against them. I watched that game a lot, and I felt the Cardinals' defense was the reason they lost.
Well,
they could not stop Detroit. I mean, seriously.
Detroit's got a lot of good playmakers, though. I mean, I'll take Detroit's offense over Carolina, who they play this week, any day of the week. I mean, especially without McCaffrey. I mean, I know you love Bridgewater, but Bridgewater is not a quarterback.
No, I love him as an alternative. I don't love him as my starter.
He loves him as a human being.
I root for him. I just felt that he got kind of gypped in his.
Sure, but when you're streaming defenses, Carolina, especially without McCaffrey, I think is definitely a team you target. And I think that Arizona can shut that offense down.
They look so bad. Andrew, I watched them. Their defensive line couldn't stop the run. Stanford, I mean,
they can stop Mike Davis. They can stop Mike Davis, though.
I mean, I guess
I'll take Adrian Peterson over Mike.
We'll
Davis
see. I mean, maybe they just had a bad game. We'll see if the Cardinals.
And then
this is weird. I actually had Arizona third. Also, is that actually your order?
My order is Denver, and then Arizona, and then the Jets. Actually.
Oh, I have the Jets and then Arizona.
Yeah. But then my fourth pick, we'll see, is you have this one too, is Houston playing at home against Minnesota. The Vikings have they had a good game this last
matchup.
week, but that's still a pretty favorable matchup. I mean, even when Minnesota scored a lot of points, they still had turnovers. Like Kirk Cousins has thrown 4 picks already, I think, this year. They've had fumbles. They just that team is kind of not had it together on either side of the ball so much so far this year, as much as we all like Justin Jefferson. So I think that Houston hasn't been a great defense this year, but they've got playmakers. So I think there's
some guy, JJ Watt. I never heard of him.
Yeah.
Exactly. I never heard of him, but I heard he'll be good someday. But like Houston, I think Houston's DBs get burned a lot. I watched them play against Pittsburgh, and I wasn't too impressed.
But like you said, it's not a great week for defenses.
It's not, and I'm hoping if you're watching the show, you have a defense that you like to play every week, like a Baltimore or a Pittsburgh or even like a Chicago.
Well, you know what you could do also? You could look ahead. If you're like, this is a crapshoot anyway, let me look to the next week, see who's got a really juicy matchup, pick them up, play them. It's a crapshoot.
No, it's great. I
you
like
know what
that
else
philosophy.
You can do is what I just did in a league today. Is I've got I looked at another team that had 2 defenses, and they actually told me that they were like, I have two defenses and I don't want to carry two defenses, but they're both too good to cut. And I said, well, why don't you trade one of them to me? So I traded, I got a tight end. I'm still working things through, but I got Mike Gesicki and Evan Ingram. And I decided to just ship Ingram to get the Colts defense.
Oh, great
he
one.
has also got the Ravens, so he didn't need the Colts. So
The
now
Colts
I got
defense,
the Colts D. Yeah.
The Colts defense last week was like one of the high scoring. They led fantasy football in scoring. They were like the 5th or 6th high scoring over players. They were like unbelievable.
I called it.
They've got a bunch of. Well, and I was high on them. I mentioned them at the beginning.
Unbelievable week for defense.
It's not rocket science to call Indianapolis
against
against the Jets. I mean,
but the thing about Indy is they got a bunch of good matchups coming up, and they also just seem to be legitimately a good defense that's really grown this season. So that they could be a difference maker.
And Jonathan Taylor looked okay. So I mean, I think the Colts with Rivers, I think they'll be okay. I think they can make the playoffs. I have a feeling they might have a good season. I just wish Hilton would get in the game a little more, but he's not. I don't know why. He used to be a number 3, number 4 receiver in the whole league.
Oh, T.Y. Hilton, he's my nemesis. Every time I played against him, he would go for like 350 yards. But he hasn't played me yet, so we'll just wait.
Okay, so let's talk about coaches that don't wear masks. Let's bet what coach will be fined next week coming up. Andrew, go.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Well, maybe it will be one that already was. The Raiders seem like they got in.
Okay, so you think Chucky's going to be fined again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's your pick. Okay, Dan, who's your pick? What coach is going to be fined?
It's really interesting. I think it's because my kids are still young enough that I just haven't been able to see many games. I'm going to go with. Come back to me. You say it.
So let me make one other point here. If you watch that Monday night game, Andy Reid, he wears this giant face shield.
I see it. It gets fogged up the first time. Yeah.
But if these other guys were wearing those, they'd be much less likely to get in trouble because that's not going to like fall down off your face while you're screaming at your linebackers.
Yeah, and also they'd be much more likely to be cast in Backdraft 2 also.
Yes.
But let me ask you a question. You know how they always like cover their face so you can't read lips? Wouldn't you want the mask on so you can't read lips? I mean, isn't like a logical thing?
Not?
Like now it's a cool thing to wear. It's legal. Just put the mask on. You can't read the lips through the mask.
That's true. You don't have to do the thing where you hold the plate sheet
No, I mean, all these guys are like this. Yeah. You know.
Has Tomlin been wearing a mask?
Tomlin.
No,
I think
I feel like Tomlin's going to get fined. That's my call.
I say Pete Carroll gets fined again.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get him for another $100,000. They'll take $250,000 from the Seattle again. He just can't help himself. He's like
to be honest with you,
nutcase.
none of these guys are really aware.
Yeah, listen, if you need to figure out which mask to claim Pete Carroll's. It's going to be free. I'm
taking Pete Carroll. Dan, I need your pick.
I'm giving credit to John Harbaugh.
Oh, I said Tomlin.
He's wearing the mask.
So you're taking Tomlin. Okay, so we all got our picks.
I'm taking Tomlin
next week. Okay, write that
down. All right,
down.
now we got everybody ready for the week, which masks to wear. Now, Ross, I want you to talk about who's coming on MFSN's The Hub this week. We've got.
Oh, so Saturday we premiere. Make sure you guys subscribe. We premiere Saturdays usually at noon. Sometimes it's a little delayed. Just depends what's going on. What college football games are going on.
No, wait. We've moved to 1:45 Pacific.
1:45.
Regularly.
I'm just saying between 12 and 1:45. You know.
Yeah, if you're claiming the times, claim 1:45 first.
Okay, 1:45 then. So this week we have like a sports legend broadcaster. He was in actually one of my favorite movies, Jerry Maguire, and he's actually.
You're not gonna make me cry.
And he's also like a legend in Los Angeles. He was like the sports guy in LA for years. And it's Roy Firestone, and Roy just doesn't love football, but he's a Baltimore nut in baseball. He loves the Miami Dolphins. He went to the University of Miami. So we'll have a lot to talk about Roy about.
Let's try to convince him to come on Monster Madness. I think we should.
Yeah, that'd be great. And yeah, I mean, he's a very, and what do you know about Roy? He is the best Sammy Davis Jr. impression you've ever heard in your life. We got to have him do that.
Oh my God.
So just remind me to ask him, or you can, somebody will ask him, but if you've never seen his Sammy Davis, please watch on Saturday because
this is going to be great.
It's so good. It's a great impression. And I don't know if people know this. He used to be a stand-up comic too, and he actually.
I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah. He used to do stand-up, and he was always funny, always funny, always entertaining. Roy Firestone.
Fireside chat with Roy Firestone. I love it.
Exactly. Now, click subscribe, click the bell, tell your friends. we're just hitting our stride now, guys. Come watch with us. Roy Firestone, Saturday, 1:45 Pacific, and we can't wait to see you then.
I can't either, and I'm Ross the Boss, and I love talking fantasy sports with you, cowboy.
If she could see who was under the blanket with me, I said, you don't want to find. It is Hideki Matsui in my mind.